very special guest. I'm so happy to have her, Dr. Lillian Clark, professor and program leader of the Master's Digital Marketing program at Northumbria University London Campus, where we work together. Hello, Lillian. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you. I'm so happy you accepted our invitation. And just a little bit of context before we start for everybody. I met Lillian at the university as she's a program leader on some of the modules I lecture. And I'm always so impressed by the combination of the academic and practitioner knowledge she has. And so that, wow, this is not only the students who could learn from, but also my entrepreneur, business owner, and other professional connections. So hence I invited her. So thank you for coming. And just to start the interview right away, and my first question is that we can see everywhere, and this is what you shared with us at the induction when you had at the university, that you started with telecommunication in various IT and marketing roles. This is what it says, but I'd like to find out more about this. So what was it exactly? I believe it was in the US. How did you start, and when was the first time that you realized that, okay, this is marketing and I'd like to do this, or when you started to do this?
Well, yes, my background was originally in IT. I was a programmer actually for many years, and got more and more involved working on, let's say, some very early versions of electronic mail, as it was then. This is in the days before internet, where various companies had dreams that their email was going to be the standard, and a lot of companies were picking this up. Yes, I know this terrible accent comes from the UK, but I was involved a lot with British Telecom at the time. And those of you who are old enough may remember in the package called Telecom Gold, which was an email package that was being marketed around the world, used primarily on B2B basis. So I was involved more and more with email, and then from there into the very early days of e-commerce. Again, a lot of this was more B2B, how companies could use computers and technology to order supplies from other companies. So I was there sort of at the beginning as this thing called the Internet, World Wide Web started to take off. And suddenly the idea of buying and ordering things, of consumers buying and ordering things online became a reality. And I remember the early versions of what eventually became Amazon, things of that sort. Again, I was still by that point, I was working for BT, working in a lot of what I would call areas between IT and marketing, because while I was working in IT, one of my fascinations was also with the human computer interaction, how people reacted to software, how people use systems, etc. And I think the thing that really solidified it for me was 1990s, when the idea of buying groceries online started to emerge. Because I was completely fascinated by that. When you think about the whole idea of supermarkets and supermarket design, supermarkets are a giant marketing device. They are there to entice you in. They are there from the minute you walk into a supermarket and you smell the bakery, even though the bakery is nowhere near the entrance, to the way that goods are displayed, eye level, buy level, etc. Here you have a whole shopping environment devoted to getting you to buy more than what you intended coming in for. I think I remember reading I think it might have been Tesco, I'm not too sure, one of the major supermarket chains said that their study showed that people walking into a supermarket generally bought about 50% more than what they intended to when they bought in. And it was the idea of, how is that going to operate online? When there's no more smell of fresh baked bread, when there's no more end cap displays, no more eye level, no more samples being given out. So this is like my interest in technology and IT, and my interest in human computer behavior suddenly came together. And absolutely, I became absolutely fascinated. quit the industry, decided to go back into academia and do my PhD in online shopping. Now, this is of course 20 years ago, online shopping, very different then. And just looking at how people were adjusting to online shopping. Looked at the supermarkets, online, the whole online food shopping was changing. I looked at travel and all the chaos and mayhem behind why people spend ages looking up trying to understand airline ticket prices. And I also looked at gift shopping, because I was curious to see how people approach this when they were buying for somebody else. And the more I studied and the more I looked at it, the more fascinated and immersed I became with it. And then, of course, when mobile devices came in, and all the promise and delivery that those could bring to the shopping experience, it's been my life ever since.
Wow, this is amazing. And I know it's an interview is not enough, so it's kind of
no.
University semesters is so interesting to hear about each. But if you think back of when you first got fascinated about like the digital marketing or the digital customer journey, are there any principles, frameworks, theory which still hold up today? Because we know that everything is changing, but there are some things, how people behave, some principles. If you can share some of those that you think are still valid today.
Well, I know some of the very basic things, like students study 4 Ps and then eventually 7 Ps. And yes, we can argue over how many Ps there should be, but I certainly do not think online shopping, online digital marketing, whatever we're going to call it, has changed those principles. That the whole idea of the product, the price, the place, and the promotion
totally good.
Still valid. All that's happened is the internet has, in particular, changed the place. I think a lot of the, and if you've seen variations on the stages of the classic stages of consumer behavior, the whole idea of need recognition, information search, evaluation, what have you. That still holds true. It's just that, many different parts of it now occur online. And that was never intended to be a linear process anyway. So those very basic principles still hold to this day.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that everybody is saying that everything is changing, which is true. But if you learn these basics, then it's easier to adopt those changes, right? And one of you have a lot of publications, which I really would like to read. Great titles there. One of them is specifically about the social media and the framework of social media for SMEs. So could you talk a bit about, I know it's a longer publication, I don't want you to sum it up here, but what is the framework? What is it that you discussed there, or what is it that you found and we could share in an interview?
Okay, well, first of all, I'll give credit where credit is due. The primary author on that was Dr. Eva Silva, who was my PhD student at the time. And what she was fascinated by was what was going on with small enterprises and the internet. In that, on one hand, many of them seem to be completely all at sea about what to do about this. Because if you're a very small business, can you spare the time and the expertise and the people to work out your LinkedIn profile or what have you? But on the other hand, there were all sorts of articles coming out trying to understand, trying to show that where some SMEs were doing amazing, innovative things with social media as well. So in Eva's case, she wanted to sit back and look at, well, how can you bring together classic studies of, things like resource-based, our resource-based value of services, what have you, and how you could apply that to SMEs. And I think we wound up focusing primarily on their marketing activities, on how they were specifically how they would use social media to gather market intelligence. Because
so basically the message is that yes, it's possible for SMEs, and there are some innovative ways, and absolutely, yeah, I believe so. This is something that that our listeners can learn from. And another publication you have, and this is a very important topic, and this is also why I invited you, and I'm so happy to have you here. How academic and practitioner people can work together, because I really miss normally from social media, from all the thought leaders, are really practitioners, and kind of academic seems like just be hidden within universities. And I think that the two together can really be very powerful with all the researchers and the practitioner background. So any thoughts on this or anything about your findings there?
Okay, goodness. Everyone's going back a bit now.
Oh, and just your opinion about it.
Yeah, because I think the issue had been that academia, I have to think, I think academia was a little bit behind on this for many years, in that, particularly, when I was first studying this, I think a lot of academia couldn't really decide if e-commerce was a marketing function or an IT function. And I think it took academia quite a while to reconcile itself to the fact that it's both and needs to be taught from the perspective of both disciplines. Whereas I think from the practitioner's side, it was very much we know what we're doing. What can IT tell? What can academia tell us? And I think, it was really recognizing that e-commerce, digital marketing, I mean, my goodness, I have a collection of textbooks throughout the year where the title is internet marketing. No, it's online marketing. No, it's e-marketing. No, it's and I think it was for both practitioners and academics realizing that was a combination of the two. For practitioners, needing to understand that yes, there was exciting things going on with social media, but the whole idea of word of mouth marketing. Here's another example of another framework that's been around for ages, that the principles of word of mouth marketing have been around for a long, long time. Social media has given it all sorts of new twists and flavors. But a lot of this is still the same.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And I think it can really add both aspects, academic and practitioner, because all the research is really amazing, the publications. One thing that stood out for me when you had the induction, that you, as the student, are you on Snapchat? And they said, no, I don't like Snapchat, or I'm not interested. And you said, be on Snapchat, register on Snapchat. As a marketer, you have to know it, and you have to know what is happening. You don't have to have your own life there, but you have to know it. I really loved it. So it's really evident that you keep track of the new trends and new technology, and which is obviously emerging quite fast. So do you have any kind of resources or any anything you can recommend where you keep yourself updated, or what are your tips about that?
Well, I spend an awful lot of time online. There's no question about that. There are a number of things I follow on Twitter, I think. eMarketer. There are several other publications. Being a bit of an Apple fangirl, I follow some Mac rumors and things of that sort. Yeah, but it's finding Wired. There's no one called TMW, I think Tomorrow's Web or what have you. And it's really about finding those and looking at them and being willing to try things out. So see something early about something called Clubhouse. Ooh, I'm going to have a look at that. I forgot to remind the students about Clubhouse.
Yeah.
But it's quite, and that's an interesting example, because when I do the past couple of inductions, when I've talked to them about Clubhouse, generally 90% of them go, what's that? And there are one or two who go, oh, Clubhouse, yes, I love Clubhouse. And they draw the other ones in. I mean, there's TikTok and all its variations. These things come and go. And a marketer has to be online all the time, monitoring all the news sources. And every time they see something, going out and checking it out for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when did you start teaching at universities? So
I started teaching 2006. Yeah, I started teaching part-time in 2006 and then full-time 2007.
So that's quite, yeah. And what do you think, I mean, comparing the students of that age, is it now more difficult for the students in this digital marketing world to study and then to find a job, or how would you compare? Because now it's quite more than 15 years or how much. So
it's interesting that 15 years ago, universities, I think, were putting a bit more of an emphasis on technical skills. So 2007, there was a bit more of an expectation that a student doing a master's in marketing and digital media, as I think it might have been called, had to develop their own Photoshop skills and look at some of the Adobe Illustrators and packages, etc., that they were expected to at least learn a bit about WordPress and Wix. They were expected to use to have some knowledge of the tools so they could build things themselves. And as part of their dissertations were usually projects in which they had to demonstrate this. So yes, they were learning marketing, but as I said, there was this emphasis on hands-on use of the tools, which I think is probably not as necessary nowadays, because there are many resources that digital marketers can turn to have a website developed.
Yeah.
And many groups, they have to work. Yeah, they don't have to do their own Photoshop anymore.
Yeah.
And it also means now that it's more for students studying digital marketing nowadays. There's now more and more the question of what do they want to do after they get after the degree. And I come across students who their dream is to work in the particular industry. I want to work in fashion, or I want to work in luxury industry. I want to work in automotive or FMCG doing digital marketing. There are others who come from I want to do SEO, or I want to do PPC, or I want to do social media marketing. I'm not fussed about which industry it is. So there's now also much more of a choice in terms of whether you want to be industry focused or I call it marketing component focused.
Yeah, it's interesting because in 2006 it was before the social media boom, basically. So
yeah. There was some MySpace going on and a very primitive Facebook, but people weren't really. This was the beginning of Web 2.0, et cetera, and I think people still weren't really coming to grips with what that was going to mean from a marketing perspective.
That's
again, which is why probably there was more of an emphasis on, you have to learn how to set up and use WordPress and set up a site, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's your personal opinion as well, that today a marketer doesn't have to know so much about technology because you have this technology background, which really helped you. Do you really agree with this statement that today?
It's good if both the marketer and the software people have something of an understanding of where the other is coming from. And so that's why I think it's good for digital marketers to understand what is WordPress, what is a website, how is it built, etc. And for the software people to understand something about consumer experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the customer, how the customer behaves as something that you've always researched. Can you see a big change in how the customer is, how the customer has changed over the past, 20 years or 15 years?
Well, yeah, I was thinking about this because one of the, in some instances, it's about what they will and won't buy. One of the studies I was doing about 15, 16 years ago, was talking to people who were really excited about online grocery shopping and did all their online grocery shopping online and thought this was fantastic. We didn't have to trudge down to the supermarket, et cetera, et cetera. But then when I'd ask them about, do you do any other shopping online? Oh, yes, I go onto Amazon and buy books, that, and the other. What about clothing? No. At the time, even the most dedicated online shoppers were hesitant about buying clothing online. there was still this perception that, well, I have to try it on and I need to feel the fabric and have. And so the fact that online clothing shopping has now really taken off. Yes, there's still some resistance, but you think of how many online online clothing retailers now offer free returns. My goodness, what a difference that makes. That it basically encourages people, yes, order it, try it on. If it doesn't fit, it's the wrong size, send it back. So yeah, online clothing shopping is something that big change.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably also because of the pandemic when they were closed. And
yeah, but I mean, this change was already starting before the pandemic. The pandemic just put the seal on it, shall we say.
ASOS had the free return, which is really revolutionary. Yeah. And I also love these niche groceries shopping where you can buy, the vegetables which are not the normal ones and really niche ones. You have all the membership platforms. So that's really, really amazing. Yeah, so that's really, really interesting. And what about, do you plan to write a book, by the way? That would be interesting, I was thinking.
No.
No, okay.
I don't have the patience for that.
You don't
anymore.
have.
I have to admit, if I did, because these were.
So recommend
this was this was a book that, really at the time when I was thinking, do I want to go and study this full time and go into academia? One of the books that really changed my mind.
Okay, willing to do that. Why we buy. Okay.
And
so is it about this psychology?
It's about how we behave in shops. It's about goes along about these issues about why supermarkets are designed the way they are, etc. Why we react. Why is background music played in shops, things of that sort. It was looking at the whole retail environment, how people react to it. And this is, I think, by somebody who was actually a professional designer of shopping environments. And I read that, thought this is fascinating. How on earth is this going to translate online?
Amazing. But let's ask it this way. We mentioned and we can see that obviously online shopping has grown. What about offline one? How can it still compete? What do you see for them as the future?
Well, so I don't think that terrestrial shopping, offline shopping is a monolith, and it depends really on the sector. I mean, there are things like, think about 20 years ago, how predominant there were online electronics shops to sell, computers and televisions and things of that sort. Some things have to go online. Some things like supermarkets, there will always be a need for terrestrial supermarkets. And I think a lot of the challenge for the supermarkets was as much about the business model as anything else. Clothing has adapted nicely. You mentioned ASOS with the free returns, but Next was doing that beforehand. And the other thing that Next was doing, which was at the time considered quite amazing, was you could buy it online and return it to the shop. That whole idea of combining to the omni-channel experience, and also it's also exciting. Some industries still can't figure out what they want to do. New cars. Yeah, you would think there would be a reasonable way to sell new cars online. That just isn't working.
Yeah, Jaguar is trying that you can put it in, but I don't know, probably if you've already bought one.
I know. There are issues there. The travel industry, well, what's happened there, how many travel agents are left. I think one of the ones that really, really is desperately trying to figure out what to do next is luxury.
Yeah, and that.
Yes, and I know luxury. Yeah, luxury.
Yeah, but that is my
dangerous. Yeah, and luxury. Yeah, we're careful not to do it monolithic, but this is when they were knocked on their heels by the pandemic. If you think about, as what student was describing a typical, experience buying Louis Vuitton bag in the shop, and you'd go into the shop and you'd be offered a glass of Prosecco and all this stuff. That, of course, can't be replicated online. And, it's replicating the experience. You look at a company like Tiffany's or Cartier, are you really going to buy a £50,000 diamond ring online?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we have a lot of debate on that in the luxury brand management group module. And you showed the Balenciaga website, which is far from being optimized, and there were some brands like Chanel said that they won't do social media because kind of that's not that will not be exclusive. But how long do you think it can be? I mean, even as the generations, those generations who are now young and will come into a decision-making position, do you think they can really keep this offline-only attitude now? It's very hard.
Well, I think that the luxury experience, if you think about the whole experience, it's going, given the current level of technology, it's going to be virtually impossible to not have a terrestrial offline aspect to it. The whole sensory aspect just will not replicate online. And no, don't talk to me about virtual reality. We're probably at least a generation removed from that. And until there is some way of replicating that experience, it'll always be, there's always going to be some things like getting your hair cut that are going to have a huge terrestrial effort. And I think luxury needs to come to grips with, yes, some of it is going to be generational. And you could argue that, why are they on Instagram now? Well, that, given that, okay, millennials are just getting to the point where maybe they can afford luxury products, but it's still going to take a while. And yes, people are becoming more and more accustomed to social media as to where they first encounter products, as opposed to glossy magazines. But it is never going to be, given our current state of technology, it's never going to be online only. And I think the best luxury companies can do is improve their marketing communications.
Great that you mentioned virtual reality. I totally agree with you that it hasn't been that kind of breakthrough that they are always talking it's going to be. But looking at it from the behavior point of view, why do you think is that? Is it because of the technology and it makes you feel dizzy, or it cannot be from the behavior point of view? Why do you think it cannot make a breakthrough?
Because the whole concept of cognitive dissonance, if you've had an experience with virtual reality helmets and the way they're currently designed, for a large portion of the population, there is cognitive dissonance when you take the helmet off. Your senses have been in conflict. Your sight and your vision and your hearing, etc., are completely at odds with your sense of balance and touch, and you wind up dizzy. Some people have headaches, etc. This is a human limitation, and while virtual reality being used as more of an immersive video experience, perhaps might have some applications. There's a limit to what to what the human brain, human perception can deal with currently. If they ever come up with technology that can help your sense of balance experience the same thing that everything else that your sight is experiencing, then well, maybe. But
but even then, when you take it off, as you say, you're not there. So it's kind of this cognitive dissonance. Yeah, that's true. We'll see in metaverse what is coming.
Oh, yeah, that really I'm not staying up nights waiting for metaverse either.
Okay. No, thank you so much, Lillian. I talk to you, so many things that I learned. Thank you so much. And are you working on something now, on some kind of publications or any plans for you?
No. As I said, I'm starting to wind down on teaching, spending more time online, looking at what's new, etc. There are many social networks. I'm not signed up on all social networks, but I lurk on most of them. I'm not, I don't actively post stuff, etc. But maybe I'll now have more time. Maybe I'll spend more time, actively participating. Maybe finally getting into clubhouses more than just a member of the audience.
you know what, that would be amazing, because this, I think the people like you we need on social media and on, you know, and just totally their platform really. And you have a lot to say, and yeah, so that would be amazing. So thank you so much for everything that you've shared. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for listening.
Okay,
this is the end of our
thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Bye.
bye.